Third Chance Enterprises does plenty of jobs for New York City. Foiling the Saskatchewan's subway extortion plot, defusing the antimatter bomb at the top of the Empire State Building. I lose track of them all. But this mission was different. You have information they're hitting the sleigh, I asked Mayor Diaz. He nodded. With all the toys, I said, for good girls and boys. That's what our source is telling us, the mayor said. Christmas Eve. Draktor believes by catching the sleigh over the Hudson River, they can wipe out all the presents for the northeastern seaboard. 12 million kids wake up to an empty tree skirt. At this, I had to stand and walk a bit around the mayor's office. I helped myself to a drink from his antique mahogany sideboard. It's insane, I said. Are they going to, blow it out of the sky? Are they going to take out the big guy too? We asked our source that. And? Mayor Diaz palmed the back of his neck. She said, only if they have to. I drank my drink. I know Draktor Industrial is evil. I'd still be governor of Massachusetts if they weren't. But Santa's sleigh? Why in the world would they do this? Profits, he said. If Santa whiffs, then every parent from D.C. to Boston has to scramble and order replacement presents, one-day prime. That's a lot of gas for trucks, a lot of jet fuel. And who's the leading supplier of both in the region? Again, I drank my drink. Draktor Industrial. And can you guess who's been having a soft fourth quarter? Whose stock price stands to plummet unless something drastic happens before the new year? I pulled a hand back through my hair, remussing it. Yeah, I could guess. The mayor continued. So, Quaid, my friend, will you help? We'd already discussed why it had to be Third Chance Enterprises. The FBI, NYPD, the secular Europeans, none of them believed. It was a plot so big and bad and audacious that conventional law enforcement had no chance. Zip. It was us or nobody. Let me talk to Molly and Durwood, I said. On Christmas Eve, I kissed the kids goodnight at 10 o'clock, told Granny I'd be late and not to wait up, and hopped on the northbound New Jersey Turnpike. I hate the Turnpike in general, but it wasn't bad tonight. Most families at home hunkered down with milk and cookies. I made it to the rendezvous point at 11:05, right on time. The Vanagon was parked in the Roy Rogers lot. I took a nearby spot, clicked my car locked, and let myself in by the van's sliding door. Merry Christmas, Quaid greeted me with a hearty hug. I ducked under a missile tube stowed in the ceiling to hug him back. Right, I said, ho, ho, ho. My stomach was tight. I was prepared for my leg of the operation. I'd run through the scenarios 100 times, but now it was here. It was time. Durwood and his blue-tick coonhound, Sue-Ann, were farther back in the cabin. Sue-Ann, who was deep into her second or third decade of life, was asleep. Her ex-Marine master was prepping for his own part of the mission, strapping on body armor, slamming ammunition into guns. Quaid asked me if I had my script ready. I nodded. Where is it? He said. I tapped my forehead. He chuckled. Always one step ahead, Miguel. And you think they'll buy it? I don't know if they'll buy it, I said, but I've done 4 hours of bake sale chit-chat with her and cast my vote for him to be fundraising chair of the Kiwanis. They have to at least let me in. After we took Mayor Diaz's job, I'd done a solid week of research finding the McClures, whose children, Robbie and Kim, were the absolute best in Weehawken, Santa's probable last stop before reaching the Hudson River. Girl Scout badges, citizenship awards, science fair triumphs. If the sleigh was landing on anybody's roof tonight, it was the McClures. Now, as a mother, I do realize kids are more than the sum of their accolades, but there's only so deep you can dig working with public sources. Anyway, after identifying the McClures, I'd spent another 3 weeks befriending the parents, bumping into them at the gym, at their favorite lunch spots, at the Kiwanis Club, where they were both active. Now I took out my phone. It's time, right? Quaid and Durwood checked their watches and nodded. I dialed the McClures. Hello? Tina McClure answered, which was encouraging. Plenty would have let voicemail pick up at 11:16 p.m. on Christmas Eve. Hi, Tina? Oh, gosh, I'm so glad you answered. I just broke down on the turnpike and your house was closest. I waited for an, oh no, what can we do, or an, that's awful, but none came. I plowed ahead. I was able to get an Uber, but they're only doing quick local rides tonight because of Christmas. I talked fast because this part was so sketchy. and I was wondering if he could just take me to your place, just for maybe half an hour, until AAA can change the tire. I really don't want to wait here on the side of the road. There was a long pause at the McClure residence. In the van, Quaid had 2 sets of fingers crossed. Durwood had paused in his prep. If we had to revert to plan B, he would need different equipment, more of it, and deadlier. Okay, Tina finally said. I'm so sorry, Molly. Of course you're welcome here. There were breaks between her words, like she was mentally chasing down the gaps in my story. Quickly I said, "Great, be there in 10 minutes," and hung up. Durwood came forward to the driver's seat and took the wheel. The van started on its 3rd twist of the key. Quaid and I buckled up, and we zoomed away from Roy Rogers. What would Tina McClure's frame of mind be when we got there? Welcoming? Wary? She would be telling her husband about the call right now. What were they saying? Durwood pushed the van hard through tree-lined suburban avenues and dazzling holiday light displays. We made it to the McClures at 11:39, still on schedule. He parked on the street, and I hopped out. Remember, Quaid said, Durwood needs 5 good minutes. The big guy averages 12.7 seconds. I know, 12.7 seconds per house, I finished. Got it. I'll slow him down. Somehow, I thought. The McClure's porch lights were on. I clutched my purse to my side and rumpled my hair, trying to look like a person who just endured a breakdown on the highway. Tina and Don McClure answered the door together, meeting me on the porch before I could ring the bell. Molly, my goodness, Tina said, wrapping me in her arms. Come in, come in. Don peered through the night at the Vanagon. That van's an Uber? Is it roadworthy? Well, it got me here, I said. They must be scraping the bottom of the barrel. The couple led me inside, all of our feet quiet over the hardwood floors. Their tree was subtle, a string of soft white lights and crystal ornaments. I begged off the McClure's offer of hot tea or fruitcake. Would you mind if I just laid my head down and rested until the tow truck came? I said with a longing look at their couch. They're going to text me. I could just slip out and lock the door behind me. Don McClure glanced again at the curb. Is your Uber driver waiting for you then? That's right, yes, I said. He mulled this over, scratching the elbows of his terry cloth robe. I realized my story was starting to leak. What had happened to Uber only doing quick local rides because of Christmas? I needed to press forward. Go back to bed, you guys, I said, moving onto the couch, fluffing a pillow. I feel terrible waking you up. You want to be at your best tomorrow. Not tired and bleary-eyed because of me. Your kids are getting older. There's only so many Christmases they have left for making memories. A dewiness appeared in Tina McClure's eyes. She took her husband's hand. Finally, he quit looking out the window at the van. They confirmed I knew how the front door's push-button lock worked, wished me a Merry Christmas, then headed upstairs. It was 14 minutes to midnight. I stretched out on the couch under a lovely herringbone stitch afghan. Through the ceiling, I heard the McClure's bedroom door close, then nothing for 6 minutes. I have chipmunks in my walls at home. I think. I can't spare the money for an exterminator. And that's what it sounded like at first. A scritching, scratching noise you can't quite place. By the time I realized it was coming from the wall with a chimney running down the middle, a heavy ploof sounded, and Santa was unfolding himself in the fireplace. I scooted closer to the end of the couch. From the flue, Santa pulled a string bag with 7 or 8 presents. He hurriedly consulted a notepad tucked into his sash, then began spreading the presents around the tree, more haphazardly than I would have expected. He only had 12.7 seconds, of course. I coughed lightly. Santa whirled on me. He looked at my face, then back at the notepad. You aren't... He moved wireframe glasses up his nose to read. Mrs. Tina McClure? No, I said. I'm Molly McGill. He crossed one black boot over the other. McGill. We're in Morristown? I prompted. Zach McGill? Karen McGill? Ah! He tapped his rosy cheek. That's where I know the name. Plenty of debate about young Zach this year. I can imagine, I said. Probably every year since puberty hit. Santa's belly shook in a laugh. You're a healthy sleigh ride from Morristown. I had some car trouble, I said, wondering if his magic extended to reliable lie detection. What were you on the road for? Oh, I said, taking my time with each answer. Work. On Christmas Eve? Santa was aghast. I sighed. I have a weird job. The hours are weird. My coworkers... I thought of Durwood's arsenal in the van, which could have toppled a minor Central American government, and Quaid Rafferty, the twice-impeached former governor of Massachusetts. Yeah, they're also weird. Santa's lips pressed sympathetically. I wondered if he had his own workplace issues with the elves. There's so much wrong with that dynamic, he'd almost have to. Will you be home by morning? He asked. I should be, I said. I mean, you can't miss Christmas morning. His eyes, twinkling bright, turned to the string bag, which had just 2 presents left. I checked the wall clock and saw we'd been chatting for 3 minutes. What else do you talk to Santa Claus about? Gosh, anything, right? It was the chance of a lifetime, and I was drawing a complete blank. Is there much, snow up your way? I said, this time of year? He chuckled again, reaching for the last presents. What was wrong with me? Snow at the North Pole? Just with global warming and all, I scrambled. I don't know if that varied much. Ugh, this was horrible. You're really going to get political with Santa? Our ice is 12 feet thick this year, he said stoutly. Even I can skate quite safely. I smiled, although the comment bothered me. I'm not comfortable when people make fun of their own weight. And was there also the faint whiff of climate change denial? That's good, I said. I love skating. I've been trying to talk my 6-year-old into taking lessons. As I segued on to a discussion of Karen's extracurricular interests, dance, art occasionally, soccer not at all, I could tell Santa was only listening out of politeness. But that was fine. I was right at the 5-minute mark now. Any extra time was gravy. Well, your little girl sounds like a gem, he finally said. Thank you, Santa, I said. She is. He gathered up his now empty string bag, tidied up around the fireplace, and wished me luck on my further travels tonight. And to you, I said, with a dark thought of what lay ahead of him over the Hudson River. As Santa disappeared up the chimney, I found paper in the kitchen and scribbled a note thanking the McClures for their help. I refolded the Afghan, straightened the couch cushions, and left, confirming the door had successfully locked behind me. Quaid was waiting in the van, his arm draped over the passenger headrest. Nicely done, he said. Durwood made it with time to spare. I looked back into the cabin, and sure enough, there was no sign of the ex-Marine. His dog, Suan, was snoring softly against a metal tube labeled Stinger FIM 92, surface to air. That was surreal, I said. What would you have talked about 5 minutes with Santa? Quaid's blue eyes turned pensive. He fingered the lapel of his sport coat. Doubt, he said. I want to know how he keeps the demons at bay. All those judgments about naughty and nice. It has to grind on him. As Quaid cranked over the engine, I squinted at the sky but couldn't pick out the sleigh. He seemed very centered, I said. The Vanagon belched and hacked and stuttered, then settled into gear. Quaid drove us out of the subdivision toward the turnpike. There's plenty of time for a nightcap, he said. Mayor Diaz and I were planning to hit the town, find some holiday cheer. Care to join? His hand found my far shoulder, and I'll admit I was tempted. I have an on-again, off-again thing with Quaid Rafferty, and lately we've been on. Nah, I can't, I said. I still have stocking stuffers to wrap. I'm not done with Christmas. Quaid reared up from the steering wheel. McGill, he said, freelance operatives do not wrap stocking stuffers. I figured I'd have to squeeze onto Santa's sleigh with a bunch of presents. We didn't know if he'd have a bag per state or per city, or just one giant lumpy sack. I was ready for all of these scenarios. I didn't figure on a grumpy reindeer. Vixen snorted when I wedged myself in back of the sleigh with him. I think it was Vixen. That's what the harness said. Vixen. His left foreleg was bandaged. Come up lame? I asked in a friendly way. He snorted again and shifted, pinning me harder against the wood side. I didn't mind. If the mayor's information was correct, the ride would be short. Santa squeezed out the top of the McClure's chimney, walked over the peaked roof, and climbed into the cockpit. He hardly peeked back. Took the reins and whistled ahead to the able-bodied reindeer. They'd been bunched up sniffing each other, and now got in formation. All the way, he called. All the way across the river this time. He snapped the reins, brisk for an older fella, and up they went. Seemed to me the animal's hindquarters did the majority of the work. The reindeer on the left started low, and the sleigh tipped. I gripped the closest bag of presents, thick canvas material, to keep from falling. Vixen blubbered his lips at me. Real funny, I said. In a hurry, we were out over the Hudson. The water moved in dark swirls, black with gray peaks, a void between the blinking shores of New York and New Jersey. From my own bag of goodies, I took out my M9 semi-automatic. I rose to one knee. My boot heel braced against the back of the sleigh. Halfway across the river, I heard a plink and felt the right rail tense. I leaned around the presence to see. Over the cockpit's side was the claw of a grappling hook. The cable attached to it disappeared into the clouds. They had us. I sprang forward, one foot trampling dolls and books and toy trucks, the other on the lip of the sleigh. But the Draktor man beat me to the punch. He zipped in by the cable, materializing out of the clouds and hopping in the cockpit with Santa. "All right, Tiny," the man said. "Keep us over the river and nobody gets hurt." He wore a ski mask and tight tactical clothes. Why? What do you want?" Santa asked. The man's head flicked back toward the sleigh. "We're dumping your payload." Santa opened his mouth to argue, but the man drove a fist into his gut. Santa crumpled to the footwell of the cockpit. I planted my front boot to dive. If a fella takes a swing at St. Nick, he'll get no mercy from me. Before I could launch, 2 pairs of hands caught me. I struggled to free myself. I head-butted a man behind me. I scissor-kicked blind and caught something square with my boot. Whatever it was cracked in 2. A third man worked his muscled forearm behind my neck in a half-Nelson. "Who are you?" he demanded. "Durwood Jones," I said. "1st Marine Division, Master Gunnery Sergeant." The man snorted. He was likely ex-military himself, and thought little of enlisted grunts. "You crashed the wrong party, Durwood," he said. "It's a long way down." He forced us ahead, crab-walking, up near the cockpit where the first man had taken the reins. "Turn, dang it!" he yelled through the night at Rudolph. "Stay over this river or we'll make venison jerky out of you." I realized the man breathing into my neck intended to eject me. I quit digging against him with my legs and let myself be pushed to the rail. "Hope the Marines taught you to swim," he said, shoving me square in the back. My body started into the void, into the sky. The man tried releasing his half-Nelson, but I reached up and gripped his wrist. I squeezed that wrist like a starving gator with a muskrat, and brought him with me. We tumbled down. With my free hand, I caught the rail of Santa's sleigh. I fought for purchase and got my arm hooked to the elbow. I released my attacker as my legs swung underneath, and he went spinning, flailing, falling. I climbed hand over hand back up to the cockpit. Far as the others knew, I was long gone. I assessed the situation. The one hostile was driving the sleigh. Rudolph, whether he understood the man's verbal threats or not, had turned upriver. 2 other hostiles were busy in back. Vixen was giving them the evil eye while they fiddled with rope knots, trying to untie the bags. I decided to secure the presents first. I moved back along the sleigh's exterior, my boots on the rails and fingers gripping varnished wood. Santa had carved some grooves in the side, decorative flourishes, I suppose. These improved my grip. By the time I got back there, the big bag was half untied. Top had come open. The one fellow reached in for a tricycle. He looked at the card. "Sorry, little Savannah," he said. "This just ain't your year." He tossed the tricycle, red with a brass horn, over the side. I leaned away from the sleigh and caught it. I tossed it back at the man. He looked at his partner, confused for a moment. That moment was enough. Hurling over the side, I stopped one hostile with a straight right to the nose and drove my shoulder through the other's chest. Found a loose section of rope and hog-tied him. Then I took the stinger from my goodie bag, strapped it over my back, and started for the cockpit. The driver looked over his shoulder. He was expecting his boys, giving him the all-clear they'd dumped the presents, but he saw me instead. His eyes pinched in the middle of that ski mask. I drew my M9. He looked for help, head whipping around, letting the reins fall. I fired one into his shoulder. There was no time for footsie. We had something roaring up on our 6, an Apache chopper I judged based on the sound signature. I picked up the reins. The hostile was in shock, screaming, stopping his wound with the opposite hand. He'd live. The shoulder's a big joint. Santa was back on his bench by now, holding his belly like he'd had too much holiday turkey and stuffing. He looked at me. The one eyebrow was crooked. I said, "I'm a good guy." Santa didn't seem sure, but he accepted the reins when I offered. He gestured back to the deafening helicopter. "Is that aircraft with you?" I shook my head. Afraid not. The Apache was riding high, which gave me decent line of sight. The pilot was bringing his rockets around on us. Against the night sky, she looked like a big angry bug. I swung the stinger off my back, onto my shoulder. I confirmed the payload in the tube. "Wait," Santa said. "Wait just 1 minute. You aren't going to shoot that weapon." I closed one eye and placed the other flush to the scope. It's us or them. I neither saw nor heard a reaction from Santa.
I waited for the weapons acquisition tone, then squeezed the pistol grip. The payload fizzed out of its tube, my shoulder stiffening against the recoil. There was a terrific flash, then flaming chunks began dropping from the sky. I turned to Santa. He looked tired and old. Deep lines crisscrossed his face. I suggested we stop at the first police station, New York side, to drop off our criminals. From there I could walk to City Hall, where Quaid Rafferty was. Supposed to be, anyhow. He and Mayor Diaz got together. You never know. I climbed back with the presents and Vixen. Vixen sniffed roughly at me. Could be he smelled my blood, or sweat, or explosive residue. I leaned back in the corner of the sleigh, pulled the brim of my hat down over my eyes. "Got news for you," I said to the injured reindeer. "You don't smell like a rose yourself."